You've also expressed some interest in moving to electronic medical records and some of the other electronic technologies, out there to help save healthcare costs. What's the first step in that? What do you see as the problem, and what would you like to see done?
Anytime you go to a doctor's office, you just see all those people back there filling out forms. And they give you more forms to fill out. It drives me crazy. I'm filling out the same form every time if I'm there the day of or the day after. That kind of redundancy has got to be eliminated. And that's where having leadership in the governor's office, I think, can really pay off. I want to get with the Tennessee Medical Association, with the Hospital Association, get them together and help facilitate a solution to this issue. You see banks, I see it in my banking background, everybody is going to electronic record keeping.
Right.
We've got to do that in our state from a safety issue and from a cost savings issue. We've got to head in that direction. But now I don't want to dictate it, I want to facilitate it.
Right. Do you have any thoughts, or have you seen any research on what kind of cost savings that could be to us if we started going more electronic?
It's almost impossible to document the cost savings, but it is obvious. I mean, you look at the employees who are sitting there filling out that paperwork, and you understand that they probably are participating in a profit-sharing plan. They've got medical benefits, in addition to just their labor costs. As a businessman, I understand how expensive labor can be in those regards. There is no question that those savings have to drop to the bottom line.
In addition to the issue of health care, the next governor is going to inherit a weakened economy in the state. There's just no two ways about it. And we've had reduced state revenues. One solution often mentioned is creating new jobs, and it's something you've already mentioned here today.
Absolutely.
What specifically do you think you can do to create more quality jobs here in the state of Tennessee?
One of the programs that worked so well in this state to help open up many of our rural areas and to attract industry into it was our road program. But I think today, one of the key components to attracting industry into this state now is getting the technology access out there into all of our rural areas. We don't even have it in all of our urban areas at this point in time. I hear stories about that all the time. I was given a little bit about my background, but I serve on the Jackson Energy Authority Board. That's the local utility in West Tennessee, and we provide wastewater, natural gas, electricity, but the most important thing, and interestingly, is our broadband service. We were one of the models for provision of broadband service in the Southeast. As a matter of fact, I was down in Chattanooga the other day, and one of their board members was talking about, they were looking at what we've been doing in Jackson. I want to tell you a quick story. I think it's a great story about our economy and how important this can be. There's, as you're aware, Whirlpool bought out Maytag. Well, we had a Maytag plant in Jackson, Tennessee. I believe it was like 540 jobs. They decided to consolidate production, and they were going to close that plant. We had a company come in named Carlisle that is going to employ 470 people, which is almost comparable. And when you ask Carlisle why they chose Jackson, Tennessee, they said, one, we've got some production in China that we're going to close down and move back to the States. And why? Because transportation costs, they're worried about the cost of transportation in the future. Just-in-time delivery, much closer. Tennessee lies within a few hundred miles over half the population of the country. But the third interesting thing I heard them say was that the internet access in Jackson was so important to them, and when they were in China, they really did not have that capability, and it impeded their ability to communicate with their other plants, be able to compete globally. You would think the labor costs over there would be so much lower that it would reduce that, and when you looked at the overall picture, having our infrastructure in place was more important to them from a cost-saving standpoint than just having cheap labor.
Right. Well, aside from the Maytags and the Whirlpools, where do you see small businesses fitting into the creation of better jobs?
Well, you know, I am a small businessman, and I well understand the rigors that small business faces in all the compliance that they have to do. I don't want to be dictating from Nashville, Tennessee, in the governor's office how small business runs their business. That's the backbone of our economy. There is no question about it, and we need to do everything in our power to make sure that the small businesses in this state are able to compete, that have the kind of workforce they need, that they've got access, that their employees have the access to training that they've got to have. We have to keep them competitive and keep those services available to them.
And of course, a big part of that is having a well-educated workforce.
Absolutely.
Which starts at the very beginning. You've been a huge proponent of the pre-K program, as Governor Bredesen has been. How successful do you see the Tennessee pre-K program is, and what would you like to see happen with it in the future?
It has been, in my opinion, a great success, a model for the rest of the country. Oddly enough, I think Sumner County is the only county that does not have one of those in existence. It has been huge. It's in all the other 94 counties, and I would like to see that kind of program continue to expand. You know, I had the opportunity, instead of talking, I had the opportunity of listening to the Knoxville school superintendent over in Knoxville at a meeting over there one day. A very, very enlightened, in my opinion, very brilliant guy. And he was talking about how important it is to catch these kids at that age and get them interested in learning. He said, because by the time you get to the 4th or 5th grade, much of their focus, their attitude is already formed. So you've got to catch them early. And I think this is a great program for the state of Tennessee and for our future. And yes, I definitely want to continue it.
K through 12 education is a huge part of the state's general budget. What are we doing right in public education, as well as where can we make improvements?
Well, you know, we're doing a lot of things right. First, you know, the State Board of Education has recently raised the standards for graduation from high school, and I completely agree with that. But, you know, I think it's going to be hard, truthfully, going forward for some of these school districts, and they're in rural areas as well as urban areas, to be able to provide all the courses in a timely manner so that our students are able to graduate in a traditional 4-year program. I believe we're going to have to start using technology, and that's the other component of what we were talking about, economic development. We're going to have to be able to start using the internet and technology in many cases as a teaching tool in these school districts, and so we've got to get that out there. You know, it is really sad to say, but there was recently a study that came out that said Tennessee was only graduating 45% of their students from colleges over a 6-year program. Now, when I went through, I thought it was 4, but over 6 years we're only graduating. There are only 2 states that are below us, Arkansas and Louisiana. That means Mississippi, as a percentage, is graduating more of their students than Tennessee. The conclusion of that study was that our kids are not prepared when they hit the college level. Right. We have got to keep the focus on K through 12, and I think that in many ways will help solve many of the problems we're seeing in higher education.
And of course, here at Volunteer State, we're constantly concerned about and hearing about the costs, the rising costs of higher education. You're quoted as saying here that you will work hard to hold down tuition, improve degree rates, and keep college accessible for any student who has the grades and wants to attend. How do you see doing that? How can you pay for that?
Well, you know, I think the scholarship fund obviously is one that has helped so many of our students go to school. One other component, I think, is we have got to utilize our community colleges more efficiently and make them even more attractive to our students in Tennessee, because the cost of education in community colleges is cheaper than it is in our big 4-year institutions. So the better we can utilize that, the more streamlined we can make our administration, the more cost savings we will have and the more funds we'll then have available for our students.